Let's get into today's episode of Why We Succeed. What is going on, everybody? It's your man, Jay Immanuel. We are back with another episode of Why We Succeed. And today I have a very, very special guest joining me on the podcast. The one, the only Dr. Shante. What's going on with you?
Hold on, let me shake my tambourine because
you really got it. I love it.
I really
do. Yo, that is amazing. Yo, I'm so honored to have you on the podcast. You have had such a huge impact on me and, the life of people that I know just from your podcast, even before Whole and Complete. Some people may know about your podcast before that, Believe in Bigger. Yeah. And you are such an inspiration. I just want to say thank you so much for, coming on here on the show. I'm looking forward to diving into your journey, but just thank you for all the work that you're doing.
Thank you so much for having me. And it's a blessing to be able to have some longevity in doing this work because people do crash and burn. And so I'm just grateful to still have the energy, the impetus, and the passion and the drive to still do this work.
Right. And as a fellow podcaster and content creator, one of the hardest things for most people to develop is that thing that starts with a C, consistency. And, you've definitely been able to overcome that hurdle that, catches a lot of people up. And I have to applaud you for that because I've seen a lot of people, bite the dust because of that one.
Oh, yeah. I have a friend. She said it's my superpower. She said, if you ain't going to be nothing else, you're going to be consistent. I was like, yeah, and even though you didn't ask, I'll say this. I think one of the keys to being consistent is what I call the kind of carry water, chop wood philosophy. So I think a lot of times when people start things, they're looking for the payoff or the outcome, or they're looking at the metrics, and it's not to say that you should not use data. You should absolutely use data and use it to inform things. But sometimes when it doesn't look like what we think it should or what we hoped, it can be demoralizing or discouraging or, it causes doubt. Like, should I really be doing this or what have you? And I've really learned to just kind of put the blinders on and just carry water, chop wood, and just keep going. And divorce myself from the outcome because this is something, and you and I have talked about this before in a previous life, this is something I've been called to do.
Yes.
I don't think anybody, there are very few people that step into the grind of content creation for the money, because in the beginning, nobody knows who you are, and you have to build that audience. And so it's a grind. It really is a grind. And to be consistent in it, you really do have to have a purpose higher than yourself to keep this kind of work going. And so, it's a blessing to just be able to still be in it.
Yeah. And like I said, the one thing that stands out to me is how many people you've impacted. Like, people love you, people love the content you put out. And I think that speaks highly, right? Because I think it's, to a certain extent, it's easy for people to produce the content. And some people, it's easier to get people to like them and have that. But then the combination of both of those, where the people resonate, they connect with you, and you're able to stay consistent putting out the content, it's the best of both worlds.
It really is the best of both worlds. I feel like that old Sally Fields clip, they like me, they really like me. And I try not to get caught up in that. One of the gifts that I know that I have, and it's really kind of a blessing and a curse, really, is I have this gift of kind of prophecy, not in terms of I can see into your future, but in terms of one of my gifts is speaking truth to power. And sometimes that means speaking inconvenient truths, and I've learned to temper the delivery, but the power of the truth is still the same. Right. And I think that that's the real gift and the real blessing in all of this is I can tell you the truth. I can speak it in love, and people feel the ouch. They'd be like, oh, she came for my edges a little bit. And then they share it with their friends like, girl, she snatched my edges. I want to snatch yours too. Right. So to be able to do both and walk that fine line, and what I appreciate about that, because for a long time, and we'll get into pieces of this, but for a long time, I resisted the term influencer. I was like, ooh. I'm like, because to me, influence says, look at me, right? And I try to create content that says, I see you. And So for me, it's less about influence and more about impact. Like, I really want you to live a better life. I really
Yes.
want you to aspire to have a higher version of yourself, right?
Hmm.
And so I prefer the word impact, but in the world in which we live and engage,
Hmm.
influencer is the label that it's been given.
It is.
And so I have slowly but surely come to embrace that. And I won't lie to you.
Mhm.
Being compensated for the work that I do made it that easier pill to swallow. I'm like,
I
okay,
bet.
let me see these influencer contracts.
Right.
You know, I was like, if that's what you want to roll with, we can roll with that. But at least
Hmm.
I know that the genesis of the work I do and the place that it's coming from is really coming
Right.
from a place of positive impact.
Right. And here's a question. I'm curious. Is part of your hesitancy of taking on the influencer label because of the intentions of a lot of people who tend to have that title not really matching up with your role as wanting to make an impact in people's lives?
Yeah. So, and I'm not throwing shade at how people get their money.
Hmm.
You can't knock the hustle. Okay,
Right.
you can't knock the hustle. And to be honest, if I was guided by a different moral compass, not to say that
Hmm.
people are immoral, okay,
Right.
but if I was guided by a different moral compass, if I could just, man,
If there was a little bit more bend, right?
if there was a little bit more bend, I would be balling out of
Right.
control because God has blessed me. I know what my gifts are. I know what my
Yeah.
assets are, and I'm like, if I just had a different,
Yeah.
but um, you know, and it's not that I haven't given it serious, heavy contemplation, but I'm just like,
Mhm.
nope,
Yeah.
can't do it,
That
because it just wouldn't be authentic to what I've been called to do.
right.
And the thing is that not to get, heavily into God, but I always feel like I'm like, God could use anybody.
Mhm.
Anybody. I mean, there's billions of people in the world can use anybody to do this work.
Mhm.
And the fact that you called me to do even one small piece of it is a privilege. And so I
Mhm.
don't want to abuse the privilege by bending too much.
Right.
By bending too much. So I'm gonna just leave that right there.
Nah, that's real. Yeah, that I know what you're talking about. Like I've had conversations with people and I've been blunt. I've been like, yo, if people don't have a moral compass, like there's no reason why you can't win. Like in the society that we're living in, if you're like, yo, I ain't got no moral compass, and you're telling me like you broke or you struggling, I'm like, how? How is that
How?
possible?
How?
Like in the day, like it's the moral compass that is what's oftentimes hindering some people from stepping forward because you got to make sure that what you're doing doesn't just sit right with the people that you're influencing or you're impacting, but with yourself and most importantly, with God. But yeah, I know what you mean. Like
Listen,
if there was a little bit.
OnlyFans is a real business. It's a real
Mhm.
business and people are making real money.
Right,
And I said, you know what? And the pandemic, people was losing jobs. And I was like,
right.
but God kept a job, kept my
Yo,
influence
God is
steady,
good.
just kept on, and that's what I mean. And I'm not disparaging people that are on OnlyFans. Like I said,
Right.
the way you make your money is the way you make your money. But for
Yeah.
me and the people
Hmm.
that I've been called, because it's not just, a calling to do
Hmm.
work, it's a calling to do work for a segment of people.
Right.
And for me to have the kind of resonance and credibility and respect that I have in doing
Hmm.
what I do, that's just not a platform that works for me personally.
Right.
But yeah, if I didn't have a moral compass,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's bags to be gotten. There are bags to be gotten for
there are
sure.
bags to be gotten, to be secured.
Yeah. So I'm curious. There's always this one question I like to ask each of my guests on the show, and that's how do you personally define success? What does it look like for you?
So, success for me, and this is a really timely conversation, right?
Mm,
Um, because I recently was in New York with some friends
mhm,
and we talked, and one of them is an actor. He's a famous
mm.
actor. He's been on shows on HBO like The Wire and
Nice.
The Walking Dead and that sort of thing. And we're just kind of like walking and talking. And I asked him, I was like, how did you know that you had like made it? Like
Mm.
what was the moment where you like,
Mama, I made it.
Mama, I made it. Like what was that moment? And so he told me, when it was, and he asked me the same question. And I said, you know what? I said, my metric of success is this.
Mm,
If I left the world tomorrow, will I have left it better than I found it based on the work that I did here? Like,
mhm,
is the world better? Is it brighter? Is it lighter? Are people healthier? Is
mhm,
are positive things happening in the lives of other people because of what I did here?
right.
And the answer is yes. Like
Mm,
literally, I've been blessed to really positively impact the lives of thousands of people,
yes.
which is crazy, to think about that. It really is. It humbles me to this day because I'm like, why are people listening to me? You know what I mean? Like, because think about how many there's well over 1 million podcasts in circulation.
Right,
There's no shortage of TikToks. There's no
right.
shortage of reels on Instagram. There's just no shortage of content available. And
Mhm,
so the fact that in the quagmire of all that is available, that somebody
right.
would find you, and not just find you,
Mhm,
hear you, and
yeah.
and have what you say to them resonate and connect, and then they share
Mhm,
it with other people. So I can honestly say that success for me is, can you leave here
mhm,
and the world be a better place than it was before you got here because of the work that you've done here? And that's how you know that you've made it. And
mhm.
I've been made it. Like I've been made
Yes.
it. So now all of the other things that come on top of that, like
Mhm.
compensation and money and what have you, is really like the icing on the cupcake. And I
Okay.
will be honest with you,
Yes.
the struggle is real. So we talked about like longevity and consistency.
Mhm.
Me and God have had some really tough conversations. I'm like, the math ain't mathing, like I'm not getting paid for this. In
Mhm,
fact, I pay to do this. People don't think
right.
about, like even though there's like a lot of free tools out there in terms
Mhm.
of like software, but those little subscriptions, okay, add up like
They do.
Dropbox, and
They do.
or StreamYard, or like all the little the audio hosting and the podcast,
Mhm.
all those little things add up. So even if it costs you, 40, $50 a month, which isn't a crap ton of money, but
Right.
over a year, if you
Mhm.
spending $500 a podcast and you're not getting anything back, you know,
Right.
I had years that were like
Mhm.
that. And to do it consistently, to just
Yeah.
consistently give, free game and just consistently give. And so I was really wrestling with that. And
Mhm.
what changed my heart about this was, it
Mhm.
was 2019. 2019.
Okay.
So I had a speaking engagement in
Mm.
Dallas. So, I just went on a little mini tour,
Mhm.
and listeners of a podcast, well, actually one of the listeners was like, I want to host you, and I've got a space for you to speak in, and all this
Wow.
and the third. So really, she's like, I'll even put you up in a hotel. So really, truly a blessing.
Right.
So I'm going through, my workshop or what have you, and my
Mhm.
spiel. And at the end of it, this young lady came up to me, never met her in my life. She's like, Dr.
Mhm.
Shante, you changed my life. And I'm like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. She said, no, you
Mm.
don't understand. She said, I just found out yesterday that you were going to be here. She said, I drove
Mm.
6 hours from Lafayette, Louisiana,
Wow.
just to come and see you in person. I drove through the night because I wanted to tell you, a few months ago, I was in a dark place. I wanted to
Mm.
take my life, and I was just crying out to God, like, please, Lord, tell me something, send me something. I
Mhm.
need you right now. I need you to speak to me. And
Mhm.
she said, I found your podcast. And she said, you are the reason that I'm alive today.
Wow.
Jay, that hit me in my soul. That hit me in my soul. And
Man.
I was like, you can't put a price on a changed life. Like you can't.
No,
You can't monetize that. That
you can't.
somebody's daughter, that somebody's sister, that somebody's friend
Mhm.
is here another day, to stay in and fight the good fight because of something that you did. And you
Right.
sitting up here worrying about, how come you're not getting sponsorship checks? Ma'am,
Mhm.
no, like,
Yeah.
no. And so once I kind of got clear on that,
Mhm.
um, I really truly like divorced myself from the outcome and really just
Mm.
started to podcast from a place of just service.
Right.
Um, and then, thought about other ways, to kind of like monetize and what have you. And to be honest with you,
Mhm,
the reason why it's profitable today is
mhm,
because I've been consistent. Because a lot of times when brands and sponsors and other people are looking at you,
mhm.
they're looking to see like, okay, is this a flash in the pan, or
Right.
this is something that you consistently do? Do you have a body of
Mhm.
work? And I have a crazy amount of, my digital
You
asset
do.
game is like not like yours, because I remember your podcast,
Mhm.
Right to Real Love. I was like,
Yeah.
this dude, you were so smart about it. Like you would take these episodes and like break them up.
Yep.
I was like, see, I should have been on that. I should have been on that approach. But yeah, when
Mhm.
you create that body of work and those digital assets and what have you, those are the things that pay dividends in the long run.
They do. No question. Oh man. And to your point about how oftentimes we go about this and it's a labor of love for many of us because there isn't any monetary gain for quite some time. I know that's my story, and that's partially the reason why I wanted to start this podcast is because I know that there's a lot of content creators out there who have yet to make that first dollar or who have yet to make that consistent amount of money on a monthly basis from creating content and doing the thing that they love. And when I noticed that how challenging it is, how much we love what we do, like there should be some form of compensation. But to your point, when you hear the impact that it's had beyond the material, beyond the physical, yeah, it touches you in a way, and it's a reminder that you're doing something that has a much greater impact than how our bank account looks at the end of the day. Yeah, I know that there's definitely been times when, for me at least, I can't speak for you or other content creators out there, but when I've been at those points of like, man, like questioning, should I keep going? Like, should I pivot? Should I pause? Should I do these things? Or doubting the impact that it's having, that's when God will have somebody send an email or I'll have the opportunity to, connect with
Every
somebody and they'll tell
time.
me. And I'm like, man, like God
Get
always
out of my
knows when to
thoughts.
draw us back in, right? Yo, it's amazing how that works, but he always knows. And, I'm grateful for that every single time.
And I don't want to lose the point.
Mhm.
So, and because I'm not a male, obviously, but there's a lot of pressure. So hustle culture is real,
Mhm.
grind culture is real.
Yep.
There are people out there that tell you that if you're not making X amount of dollars a month, you just got an expensive hobby and
Yeah.
that sort of thing. And for men, especially in this society, worth and
Mhm.
value and success is measured by that very limited metric. It's like, okay,
Right.
well, how much money you making? How
Mhm.
many stacks, how many racks can you put on the table and what have
Right.
you? And so it goes directly at your quote unquote manhood, as it were, even
Mhm.
though, hold on, that's a different podcast for a different day.
Right.
There are many other metrics, okay,
Yes.
of manhood other than money in the bank, trust and
Mhm.
believe.
Right.
But yeah, and so you have to kind of filter out that noise
Mhm.
that says that you're not this or you're not that unless you're making this and unless you're making that, and
Mhm.
really trust the gift that you have, trust the timing of your life, and trust the journey that you're on.
Right. That is so true. And trust me, I've definitely wrestled with that, and I would even say to a certain extent, still kind of wrestle with it. I don't think it's something that I've overcome completely. But as you mentioned, just always having those reminders that there's more to measure myself by, and to other men who are content creators out there as well. Like there's more to measure ourselves by than how much money we're earning, whether it be monthly, yearly, or whatever the case may be. But yeah, I'm really glad that you pointed that out because it's so true. So true. I do want to kind of go back a little bit with your story as an entrepreneur. Did you always know back to when you were growing up that you would be an entrepreneur, or how did you fall into it? Tell us that story.
Fail is right. So I was drinking the Kool-Aid, right?
Mhm,
One of the things, so I'm a college professor, and one of
mhm,
the things that I really get really clear about my students about, and don't at me, don't come for me, like think about it real long and hard.
mhm,
The United States is a capitalist society, quote unquote, right? Which means that the primary thing, no matter how much you want to talk about community and diversity and, whatever,
mhm,
capital is the main thing. So the main thrust is to make money, okay, and
mhm.
to have money, okay, and free markets and that sort of thing.
Yes.
And so I ask my students all the time, I'm like, so what do you think is the purpose of American schooling? And they're
Mm,
like, oh, to educate young minds, to have a base level of education, so that everybody kind of has like a shared understanding. And I'm like, oh, that's cute.
Right.
I said, no, the singular greatest purpose of the American schooling system for K through 12 is to get people to go to work. I
Mhm.
said, it is to indoctrinate you with this notion that you go to school, get a job, have a family
Mhm.
that you will send to school
Mhm.
so that they can get a job. So, and then they have a family that they will send to school and
Right.
go to work. Like, it's to churn the American economic engine, right? And
Mhm.
so I'm not magic. I fell right into that. Like, I was right in that stream, right? And I
Mhm.
got a college professorship and I got myself a good government job with benefits, and I was like, "Psh, I'm set for life,
Right.
like I literally
Mhm.
could ride the gravy train to glory. Okay. Like,
Mm.
I found my forever job. I'm Gucci. Okay. I'm
Mhm.
good. And then literally, God was like, no, ma'am, your this is not your audience. Like,
Mm.
yes,
Wow.
teach these children, sorry, young adults. Yes, teach
Mhm.
these young adults, but your platform is way bigger than this classroom.
Mm.
And when you get called to do something, you wrestle with it for a while and it won't leave you alone. It's a nagging,
Right.
it's a persistent, you don't have any peace until you
Mhm.
answer the call and you're like, okay.
Right.
Okay.
Like, I got
And
it.
and as soon as I said, okay,
Mhm.
all of us, like literally all of a sudden,
Mhm.
the algorithms that be, all of a sudden, Instagram started showing like these women empowerment conferences with these
Mhm.
speakers about entrepreneurship and what have you. And I was like, okay. And like something just compelled me to go to this one
Mm.
particular conference, in
Mhm.
Virginia. And I can honestly say that that conference experience radically changed my life because
Wow.
all of a sudden I had never been in a room with women who looked like me that were
Mhm.
millionaires. I didn't even know that that
Mm.
was like in my mind, it was possible for like Oprah,
Mhm.
but not for like me, you
Mm.
know.
Yeah.
Um, and that's when I was introduced to coaching programs and mastermind programs and
Mhm.
all of, and I was like, what? Like what?
Yeah.
Women that hadn't even graduated from college. And I'm like, what? And then the next thing you know, I came back on fire,
Mm.
and
Mhm.
so I entered the space really wanting to help women develop their personal brand, because there were
Right.
so many women who had so many gifts, but just didn't know how to package it, didn't know how to,
Mhm.
sell it, didn't know how to articulate it, didn't know how to build audience and things like that. And here's
Yeah.
the kicker, right?
What's that?
So my degrees are in
Mhm.
law enforcement because at first
Mhm.
I wanted to be a federal agent. I thought I wanted to be an undercover narcotics officer for the DEA. That
Okay.
didn't happen. Um, and two educational degrees and an English
Mhm.
degree, like
Okay.
nothing to do with marketing,
Right.
nothing to do with
Right.
branding. But yet I inherently, like innately knew like these were the
Mhm.
gifts, these were the talents that I had. And
Wow.
so I went full steam ahead into this business called Design Her Label. So it was for
Mhm.
helping women to design their personal brands.
Mhm.
And that's how I came into this space as an entrepreneur. And, people in my family were like, what you talking about, Willis? Because you went to school, you got yourself a good job with good
Mhm.
benefits. Like, what's this? What is this Dr. Shante stuff? Like this, what you doing?
Right.
Um, but it it literally transformed my life
Mm.
because before Whole and Complete podcast, before
Right.
Believing Bigger podcast, the initial name of my podcast was Branding for Believers. It
Mhm.
was marketing and audience growth and building strategies for a faith-based audience.
Right.
I saw a gap in the market
Mhm.
and it just literally exploded from there. And this is an oldie but goodie, but
Mhm.
if I had known then what I know now, right? So there's this
Mhm.
book, classic book called Rich Dad Poor Dad, right?
Mhm.
And The Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, the poor
Mhm.
dad was the college professor that had the good government state job, right?
Right.
And I was, and yet the rich dad, the bottom
Mhm.
line was that poor people work for money and rich people have money work for them. But in
Mhm.
school, they don't teach you about investing. They tell
Not
you
at
to put
all.
your money in a savings account. They don't tell you to buy the stocks. They don't tell
Right.
you how to set up not LLCs, but S corps and things like that,
Right.
so that you don't have to pay taxes. And I was like, it was like the Matrix. Like I had
Right.
taken the
So you
wrong
took it.
pill, right? I was like, and all of a sudden the world opened up,
Eyes
and I was
open.
like, eyes opened. And once your eyes are open to those possibilities, it's
Mhm.
really hard to go back and act like
Yeah.
you don't know.
Right. It is. It is. Like that's the same thing that I think when I look at how long I've been on this content creation journey. I don't think I could ever go back like to corporate. Like I think about it. I'll put it like this: it's not that I couldn't go back. It's just that I don't want to. Like I want to be in a position of doing what I enjoy doing, what I love doing, and what I see other people doing, and the impact that it's having. Um, yeah, it's crazy. Like once your eyes are open, it's a whole new world exists. That's kind of what was coming to my mind when you were talking about the experience in Virginia. Like, hold on, like this is a whole new world. Like I didn't even know that this existed. Like where have y'all been?
It was like I got pulled into the Underground Railroad, and I
Right.
was like,
Like come this way.
freedom exists, because and I'm not mad, listen, I ain't
Mhm.
never gonna knock somebody for having a day job. I still have my day job.
Yeah.
I don't have any real incentive to
Mhm.
leave my job
Mhm.
because I'm the first African American woman to have ever earned the rank of full professor at my college in its 50 plus year history.
Wow.
And I'm at the top of the food chain. I'm a part of a union. I'm
Mhm.
very well compensated. I get to choose my own hours. The benefits are plush. And so I'm like, I'm sorry, what? Why would
Yeah,
I leave this
like
job? Huh?
right.
You know,
Like
um, so I don't have any real impetus to do that. And
Mhm.
the freedom of that job really allows me to be Dr. Shante. And it
That's beautiful.
supports the lifestyle. It helps me, feed my child and all those
Mhm.
other types of things. But yeah, I was like, wait, multiple streams of revenue? Wait,
Right.
passive income? Wait,
Yeah.
wait.
What is
Say it
this?
slow. Say it like I'm in kindergarten. Like, más
Right.
despacio, por favor. Like, just a little slower, please. And
Right.
and the thing is that I took what they were saying,
Mhm.
like first you have to get them to opt in, and then there's a lead in and then there's buy-in. So I started to put these systems in place as an infopreneur,
Mhm.
because I wish I had those gifts, like could like braid hair or like do make. God did not bless me with any hand talents. So like viewers, listeners, you don't want me to cook for you. Not that I can't, but like not in a way that you want to serve it to other people, you know. You don't want me doing your hair. You don't want me doing your makeup. I don't want me not tiling
Right.
your backsplash. I just don't
Yeah.
have any hand talents. All of my gifts are
Yeah.
right in between my ears. And
Mm.
so I was like,
Yeah.
okay, so infopreneur. And then I will never forget, Jay, this
Mhm.
was the crack.
What was
This
that?
was the crack pipe, right? I was at a friend's baby shower.
Mhm.
And I want to say I had created like an ebook. And let's say the
Okay.
ebook was like $18,
Mhm.
something really nominal, right?
Mhm.
So I'm at a friend's baby shower and my phone buzzes and I'm thinking it's a text or a tweet or something like that.
Yeah.
It was PayPal
Right.
telling me that I had got $18 and I was like, this works. Like
It does.
literally, you can be. They were like, it's money while you sleep, right? But
Mhm.
it was the same kind of thing. It was like,
Yeah.
wait a minute, wait.
Right.
I'm not working for this money. This money is actually working for me. And
Exactly.
and that little hit, that free base of $18 got me hooked. I was
Right.
like,
That was your
all right,
first
we got
hit.
we got to rinse and repeat. We got to get this going, and
Yeah.
you really do have to be consistent and you have to do it at scale.
Mhm.
And there are moments, where I wasn't always consistent in terms of the sales and the marketing and the product
Mhm.
aspect of it. The one thing I have been consistent on is the content creation.
Right. Right. And that's amazing. And like I said, you have had many transitions along your journey. And I'm curious, what led you to land with being a wellness coach? Because you've helped women with their branding, you've helped them, with their businesses. Now you're helping them with their, spiritual, mental. Like, how'd you get there?
Because that's the bedrock of everything.
Mhm.
Like, I remember, have those moments that just kind of like haunt you. Like there's such a thing called like vicarious trauma, meaning like it didn't
Mm,
happen to you, but it happened and it affected you in a way that was just like, kind of like, the
mhm.
tragedy of Kobe Bryant, like, and
Right.
I'm a big time Bulls fan. I ain't never gonna
Mhm.
sit up here and pretend like I was like rooting for the Lake show because I wasn't.
Right.
But when that happened, I mean,
Yeah.
you know what
That
I'm saying? It just it
out of nowhere.
out of
Surreal.
nowhere. So surreal. So I
Right.
remember those moments specifically.
Mhm,
Um, Anthony Bourdain, who is a culinary icon in the food
mhm,
world, and Kate Spade had
mhm,
basically committed suicide like within a week of one another. And
mhm.
I'm like, now when I tell you Anthony Bourdain, he was the man. Like if
Yeah.
like just Google him, y'all. Be like, oh
Right.
him. He was the man, top of his game, well respected, highly
Mhm.
compensated. I mean, like he had the life that people wish they had.
Right.
He captured lightning in a bottle and just blew it out of the water in terms of like
Mhm,
world travel and food and what have you. Had a child, Kate Spade,
mhm.
household name,
Right.
like there's not too many places you can go where people in this country at least where you don't know who Kate Spade is.
Right.
And I was like, that was a real wake up call. I said,
Mhm,
so many people think if I had more money,
mhm.
or if I had more followers, or if I had,
Mm.
and it's like, no, you need to be well. Okay.
Right.
You need to be well. One of
Right.
the reasons why branding for believers pivoted to
Mhm,
believing bigger is because I realized that the clients that I was working with and the people that I was talking to, it w- there was no shortage of strategy. There was no
mm,
shortage of information. There was no
mhm.
shortage of tools and techniques and downloads. I mean, we live in the
Yeah.
information age. I mean, so to say that the information is not out there,
Mhm.
what rock you living under?
Right.
Because the information is out there. So it wasn't that. It was mindset. It was
Mhm,
things like self-doubt. It was things like,
mhm.
excuse me, it was things like unresolved hurts from the past. It was
Yeah.
things like unhealed traumas. And I was like, yeah, people, if you don't have wellness, like
Mhm,
if you're not operating from a well place,
mhm,
and and I've had conversations about people in the past. I know what it is to be a public success and a private mess, to be
mm,
in front of the camera, to be on the
mhm.
microphone, dispensing advice that you're not taking.
Yeah.
Um, and your life going up in flames, your marriage is going up
Mhm,
in flames, or your house is in foreclosure. Like I've lived that life.
mm.
And so, in order for me to be in a place of integrity, and integrity
Right.
for me isn't like, cheat on your taxes integrity, even though you should not do that.
Right.
But integrity in terms of wholeness, like when
Right.
you look at a diamond, you look at the
Mhm,
integrity of the diamond. Like, is it whole? Is it
mhm,
intact? And that really anchored. I said, if I can't operate from a place of wholeness,
mhm,
I can't operate at all. I cannot have a public
mm.
facing platform and not be whole. I can't be
Right.
telling people to do work that I'm not doing.
Mhm,
And that changed everything, mental health and wellness. And this was also a key piece of it too.
mhm.
So I was raised in a black church. Let me qualify, a Southern Baptist black
Okay.
church. And mental health and wellness, it was like, you better pray about it. You better trust in the Lord. You better,
Right.
and I'm not knocking prayer. There's power in prayer. I'm
It
not
is.
saying that you shouldn't trust God. You should trust God.
Yep.
But that whole pray and walk away, that,
Mm,
if you
yeah.
had Jesus and a therapist, that you wasn't trusting God enough, I said, that is really hurting people. And
It
that's one
is.
thing. Again, I told you, I'm a speaker
Mhm.
of inconvenient truths, right? To
Yeah.
speak truth
Yeah.
to power. And so I really got this notion. I said, somebody needs to speak against that, okay? Because too
Mhm,
many people are suffering. Too many people are feeling like, if I go seek help outside of the church, or if I go seek help
mhm.
outside of the altar, then I don't have enough faith as a Christian and that my legacy is to suffer. I'm like, no,
No.
no,
No.
no. I said, I need to normalize
Right.
faith and wellness. Like
Mhm,
those two things need to come together specifically for this audience of people, so that you can have Jesus and your
mhm.
therapist, and he still loves you,
Yeah.
and these are people that he's provided in your life, to get better. And
Mhm.
so I launched Whole and Complete from that place. Like, the Bible says, that you might be whole and complete, lacking nothing.
Right.
right?
Right.
And so it really came from this place of like, let's get you to a place of wholeness and completeness, because once
Hmm.
you are in that place,
Yeah,
you're unstoppable. There's nothing you can't
exactly.
do.
Yeah. Everything will thrive then. It's like that's often the thing that most people, most of us, I'll even include myself in that, is we ignore the focus and the work that we need to do on ourselves, and we distract ourselves with the work of business and content creation.
Talk
And
about it.
it's not until what we're doing with regards to content creation or business is no longer a distraction. Like that's the key. I think you have to be able to identify, is this a distraction, or am I really walking in my calling, the work that I'm supposed to be doing? Because until, like you mentioned, we work on ourselves, resolve those issues, and we're not going to be perfect, right? Being whole and complete isn't perfection. And I think
No.
it's really important for people to know that, but getting to a place where we are whole and complete, only then can we move forward, do these things, thrive, and it not be a distraction. So,
And it
yeah.
not be a distraction. And a lot of people don't realize that doing the work,
Hmm.
so doing the work.
Hmm.
So acknowledging the feelings that you're trying to distract yourself from with content creation or busyness or drugs, alcohol, food, sex, porn, like the
Right.
feelings that you're trying to like numb. You
Hmm.
need to acknowledge those feelings. You
Yep.
need to analyze the role that you're playing in whatever's
Hmm.
happening in your life, instead of it being this person is doing this person is doing that,
Yeah.
analyze, what am I actually allowing this
Right.
person to do? Do I have
Exactly.
some real agency here? And doing things like owning your choices and
Hmm.
owning your mistakes, and
Yeah.
doing things like making amends, making things right with people where you have been wrong,
Hmm.
and making better choices. That's a daily thing. Like, ain't there's no
Yeah.
getting away from the work, okay?
Nope.
And a lot of times we can create this life where we're busy,
Hmm.
but we're not productive.
Right.
We're just doing things to try to escape from confronting some of these very real issues that we need to
Hmm.
confront. And so I'm like, no, let's put this stuff front and center. Let's talk
Hmm.
about these elephants in the room,
Yeah.
and give people a way to kind of dismantle some of these structures and these strongholds,
Hmm.
so that they can go off and be whole and complete people and show up in the
Yeah.
world as the best possible versions of themselves.
Right. Yeah. That's what it's about. That's what it's about. And with that in mind, speaking to the coaches out there, who want to have a successful business, let's assume that they've gone through, done the work that they need to do. As a coach, a successful coach, what do you think is the most important thing for them to do to establish that foundation for a successful business?
So, one of the things that you need to do is establish some sense of credibility, right?
Hmm.
And you don't have to have a whole bunch of letters behind your name to do that.
Hmm.
You have to there's a very this really interesting conversation in the Bible between Jesus and Peter.
Hmm.
And Jesus is like, "Do you love me?" He said, "Yeah, Lord, I love you." He said, "Feed my sheep."
Hmm.
Then he asked him again. He said, "Do you love me?" "I do." He said, "Okay, feed my sheep." Then he asked him a third time. He said,
Right.
"Do you love me?" He said, "Lord, of course I love you. Like, you know that I do. Like, what
Right.
are you talking about here?" And he said, "Feed my lambs," right?
Hmm.
You have to feed the sheep.
Hmm.
If you want to be a coach, you have to feed the sheep. You have to establish trust and credibility. Think about like when you're trying to like establish trust and credibility with like animals that don't know you, or
Right.
babies that don't know you. You roll up on a baby that's acting funny, then all of a sudden here you come with some Cheetos or Cheerios or
Yeah.
some Cocoa Puffs or something like that. Like, hey, little baby, I got
Right.
to establish like I'm an okay person. It's or
Hmm.
you hold your hand out in front of so they can get a sniff of you, get a whiff of you, become
Yeah.
familiar with you. You have to do that. I think a lot of times
Hmm.
people kind of like jump into this and say, I've got gifts, I've got talents,
Hmm.
I've got letters behind my name.
Hmm.
Hire me.
Yeah.
And you haven't fed the sheep. You haven't
Right.
you haven't given them a reason to trust you. You haven't given
Hmm.
them, and you have to give it consistently.
Hmm.
I not that I'm one of his acolytes, because I'm not, but
Hmm.
I recently saw this video from Gary Vee,
Okay.
and he was talking about building community. And he
Mm,
says one of the reasons why people fail to build community is because they're really not trying to build community. They're trying to build customers. It's
mm,
like it takes some time to build community,
right.
And so it or the old school books, punch, 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 jab, punch, punch,
Mhm.
punch, punch, jab. So it's from a coaching perspective, it's like, what are you establishing consistently? How are you establishing
Mm,
yourself for these people consistently, this presence consistently
right.
before you ask,
Mhm,
and I can tell you, like, energetically,
mhm,
I'm one of those people that knows you can do the right things for the wrong reasons, right?
mm,
So there's one thing to put a post out there because you're like, I know this is going to hit somebody where they need it. And
mhm,
something else to put it out there where it's like, hopefully this will be the one that goes viral. And once it goes
right.
viral, then, I can leverage that into an opportunity to do. It's just very different energy,
Mhm,
and it hits differently. So for me, I did the work of establishing community, and it's not to
mhm,
say that you have to do this for a year or as many years as I've done it. You can
right.
establish community. You can be consistent for like 3 months. I love
Mhm,
quarterly goals. I'm a big
yeah.
fan of quarterly goals. So, like, if your goal is like for the year to have a successful coaching business,
Mhm,
then, I'm a big believer of doing one thing at a time. Some people will be like, no,
yeah.
you can do this, that, and the third, but I'm like, that- it. You asked me how I would do it, okay?
Right.
So Q1 would be
Mhm,
all about audience growth. It would be all
mhm,
about building my list, about serving consistently with newsletters, about serving
mhm,
consistently on social media channels, about serving consistently on a podcast. You can have an 8 episode arc on a podcast, and boom, that's
right.
Q1 right there. Okay. And then you go into Q2 and you start, delivering, you know, freebies with calls
Mhm,
to action and say, hey, if you want to know more about this, if you want to know more about how to solve this problem, if you want to know
mhm,
how to achieve this dream, then let's set up some one-on-one time. So then, like, establish FaceTime with people,
yeah.
get a calendar link, and schedule some slots to actually meet people and
Mhm,
have some one-on-one conversations. And those one-on-one conversations, I know, because Jay, you're younger than me. You're a
mhm.
millennial. Bless your heart. Imma just say everything can't be texted, okay? Like,
Right.
sometimes you actually have to really have some FaceTime with people,
Yes,
and because because you want people to spend, you talk about a successful coaching business. So coaching,
yes.
getting one-on-one time, you want people to spend hundreds, possibly thousands of dollars,
Mhm,
and you can't take 10 minutes with them and say, "So tell me what you need. Tell me
right.
what's been happening." Like, those are the meetings and the places where people are like, he gets it. She
Mhm,
gets it.
mhm,
He understands exactly where I'm trying to go, or she understands exactly what I've been struggling with. And
right.
so Q2 would be having those types of meetings that then get leveraged into
Mhm,
subsequent coaching things, and that kind of rinse and repeat type of process. So I
mhm,
would say serve, feed the sheep, right?
yes.
And then once you fed the sheep, invite them to take action with you,
Mm,
invite them to have some one-on-one time with you, because if you're coaching them, you're going to be doing that dynamic anyway. And
right.
so, yeah, you can afford to spend, 10, 15 minutes with them on a discovery call. That's
Yeah.
part of the business.
It is. It is. Oh man. And another aspect of the coaching piece, right, is the group coaching. I've had the opportunity to be a part of one of your core cohorts, and definitely enjoy being a part of the 12. It was impactful, kind of going back to your whole objective, man. And I can definitely say that. Like I was telling you earlier today, I still connect with my accountability Calvin from the 12 years ago, and it just speaks to how much impact you've had bringing the right people together. And I think that that is something that I noticed about the coaching program that you put together is you were selective in the people that were a part of that group.
Mhm.
And I think that it speaks to how successful it was. With that in mind, what are some of the things that you've learned from doing group coaching as opposed to one-on-one?
So what I like about group coaching is it allows the opportunity for people to build community, because,
Hmm.
and I'm sure I've told you this story before, but I'm going to say it again for your audience, right? And
Please.
I'll try to make the long story short. So there was a famous mathematician at UC
Hmm.
Berkeley who was teaching like a pre-calc class, and he noticed that his African American students were like bombing that class. They were like failing it like left and right. They were flaming out. And
Hmm.
his Asian students were just like killing it. They were like through
Yeah.
the roof. And so he's like, what the heck? Like, first of all, to get into UC Berkeley, you have to be a pretty top notch student. So
Right.
he started asking his colleagues, he's like, this is what's happening in my class, and I don't really understand it. And they started giving him excuses like, well, maybe they come from underprivileged neighborhoods, or, they've had troubled backgrounds or the rigor wasn't there. He was like, if the rigor wasn't there, they would not have gotten admitted. Like this,
Hmm.
they wouldn't have even met the prerequisites to get to this class. Like that's just
Right.
not the math ain't mathing, okay? Like the mathematician said the math is not mathing.
Hmm.
And so finally he just asked his students, he was like, I want to observe you engaging this material. I just, not in a creepy way. I just kind of want to see how much time you're spending on it, what are you doing, that
Hmm.
sort of thing. And so his students said, yeah, you can watch us. This is where we'll be studying and this is when, right?
Hmm.
So he did this for a couple of weeks. And here's what he found, that the Black students were actually spending more time on the content, okay,
Mm.
more time studying, but they were doing it in isolation. Whereas the Asian students, they studied in groups. And
Mhm.
so they weren't spending as much time on the material, but they were teaching one another. If somebody had missed something, then another person had picked it up.
Mhm.
And this kind of like collective lift as we climb type of dynamic is
Mhm.
what was the game changer for them. And
Right.
so in the next semester, he made it mandatory. He was like, everybody's assigned a study group, and you guys are going
Mm.
to do work on this material together.
Right.
Within one semester, the Black students were right there on par with the Asian students.
Wow.
And for me, working with a group of African American aspiring entrepreneurs and platform builders, I
Mhm.
know that struggle. There's
Yes.
something for in our culture that just makes it
Mhm.
feel like we got to suffer. We got
Right.
to suffer long. We got to suffer
Sad
long,
but true.
and tarry for the Holy Ghost, to come in and do other work. And it's like, no, and
No.
we're not willing to be vulnerable enough to say, I need help with, because we feel like we should know it. And
Mhm.
so many mental hangups
Right.
and strictures that we put on ourselves as a people.
Mhm.
And so what I liked about the groups was that it created that dynamic, like, no, we're in this love together. Okay. And you all are going to be accountable to one another, and you're going
Mhm.
to see the power of having somebody in those trenches with you to
Right.
be able to give feedback, to bounce ideas off of, to
Mhm.
look at your blind spots and things that you haven't considered. So I loved that dynamic. And as you said, and that group was like, man, like 5 years ago. Okay.
Right.
And here we are. We done been through a whole 2 years of pandemic, and y'all still
Mhm.
rocking. Like,
Right.
hey man, hey bro. Like, so the fact that you all are still doing it just speaks to that dynamic. And like,
Mhm.
what does that saying say? If you want to go fast, go along. If you want to go far, go together. So
Right.
that's the beauty of the group coaching dynamic. And
Mhm.
then one on one, man, the things that people have shared with me, I I feel like a priest almost. I'm like, ooh,
Mm.
the stories I could tell about the
I
things that
could
people have
only
been through.
imagine.
People have been through some things. And so the
Mhm.
fact that people have that level of trust, like,
Mhm.
and people have said, like, this is the first time I've said that out loud. This is
Mm.
and the things that they've just been carrying.
Mhm.
So to be able to provide a safe space
Mhm.
for people to unburden themselves, to just let
Right.
that out and not be judged for it and not be like, what?
Right.
Just really a safe space to be able to release that,
Mhm.
and to find grace and to find empathy and
Mhm.
to release the shame of
Yeah.
things that they've done and experienced or what have you.
Mhm.
And then to see how they go on and do tremendous things after letting
Mm.
that go.
Right.
I love transformation. That's
Yeah.
phenomenal. So there's really power in both of those things.
Mhm. Oh man, that's amazing. And going back to the group coaching, what would you say is required for a coach to be successful when it comes to that in particular, right? Um, and this is already assuming everything that you mentioned before about, taking care of the lambs and the sheeps and making sure that they are putting the people first before they're focusing in on their bank account or what have you. With that all in place, what's required to really be a profitable group coach?
So I would say that the, to do this well, there has to be a really specific problem or a really
Okay.
specific goal that's going to be either solved or addressed, right?
Okay.
So, for example,
Hmm.
this is actually a perfect example and a recent one.
Okay.
So, I've been on this physical transformation journey.
Yes.
Man, 2 years. Let me tell you something. Like, I wrote an ebook called Aging Backwards because I'm
Wow.
44 years old. I'm gonna be 45 on my next birthday, and I don't look
Yes.
it like these two. Let me tell you something. These
Hmm.
20 and 30 somethings really think I'm 20, 30 something. I'm like,
Yeah.
look at God, you know. Um, but here's the thing. So when the
Hmm.
pandemic started, so which was like March 2020,
Yes.
something like that.
Hmm. Hmm.
So from March to December, and the gyms were closed, right?
Right.
And I used to say this thing to myself, I'm like, the gyms are closed, but I got goals. The gyms are closed, but I got
I
goals.
like
Because
that.
suddenly I had time that I didn't
Hmm.
have before. And I used to tell myself, so, limiting beliefs. I used to tell myself while I was working, oh,
Hmm.
I can't work out at home. It's my couch is there, my bed is there. Like I just can't be doing all that at home. It's too
Right.
comfortable. And then the gym closed. And
Right.
so what you
Like,
gonna
what you
do?
gonna do?
What you gonna do? And then I, like so many others, discovered the power of YouTube University, and I had
Hmm.
no idea that there
Mm.
are thousands of
Right.
just free workouts, good
Yes.
workouts,
Yes.
quality workouts
Right.
on YouTube. And
Right.
so I'm in my living room, huffing
Hmm.
and puffing and sweating and walking and doing my steps and all the
Hmm.
things. And then I found this coach. So how did I find my
Mm.
trainer? So from January to the next December, I
Mhm.
found a trainer
Nice.
who
Mhm.
specialized in strength training
Mm.
and body recomposition for
Mhm.
women over 40.
Wow. Wow.
This is
Very
important.
specific.
Very specific. Let me tell you why this is important. So,
Mhm.
ladies, in your 20s and 30s, you better hold on to God's unchanging hand. Let me tell you, the wind is at your back. God is
Yes.
on your side. All things are working together for your good right now. Your
Mhm.
hormones, all of it. Because
Yeah.
as soon as you turn 40, you're gonna be like the food that you used to eat with no problem, the drinks that you
Yeah.
used to drink with no problem. All of a sudden, you like,
Right.
what is this person? Because the I won't bore you with the journey to menopause, Jay, but I will tell you it's a journey, and your
Mhm.
your internal biology
Mhm.
is doing all kinds of things. And so
Mm.
her specifically
Mhm.
targeting women who were over 40
Mhm.
means that she understood the unique needs of
Yeah.
women who were dealing with hormonal
Mhm.
challenges and all the things. And I'm looking at some of the clients that she's worked with prior,
Mhm.
and I'm like, wait, I could look like that?
Right.
Like my body could still be banging in my
Yeah.
40s, like, so she had a very specific, and I can't say enough positive things, and it was a group,
Mhm.
type of environment, so I
Mhm.
think she was maybe coaching like maybe 8 or 9 of us
Oh,
at
wow.
at a
Okay.
time or what have you. So even though we had our
Mhm.
individual one-on-ones, she
Mhm.
still had us, come together, share
Okay.
recipes and all that other type of thing. But
Nice.
there was a commonality. That's really what
Mhm.
was the success of it all, because
Mm.
sometimes the person that you want to serve or the client that you want to serve
Mhm.
tend to think that they're like really unique in terms of like, I'm sure this is just me struggling
Right.
with this.
Right.
I'm sure this is just me who has this problem, or I'm sure it's just me who can't get over the hump.
Mhm.
And so the fact that you knew that you were in it with other women who were also battling, hormones and the battle of the bulge and all of
Mhm.
those things, that commonality was like, it really kind of evened the playing field. It made you feel
Mhm.
like you were less alone. And
Mhm.
so for a group coach, if what is the specific problem
Mhm.
that is unique to the population that you want to serve. People have
Right.
said it for years, get rich in your niche. You really can. You
Mhm.
really can when you understand the unique needs of your client. And so for example,
Mhm.
there are coaches right now, or not so much coaches, but people who have like these classes, right? Because they're selling
Mhm.
classes or what have you,
Yes.
but are doing things like, okay, how to create reels for influencers. So it's not how to
Mhm.
create reels, how to
Mhm.
create reels for specific population of people who have a
Right.
specific set of needs and specific concerns and what have you. So I
Mhm.
think that the more that you're able to really niche down into that group and like
Mhm.
this population has a specific set of problems that I
Yeah.
can address,
Mhm.
the better off you'll be, the
Yeah.
more successful you'll be.
Oh man, that's amazing. So going to your business, and this is the fun little segment I like to call like our goodie bag. Getting in your goodie bag. What would you say are some of the tools or the resources that really help you along in your business?
Get an admin.
Mm.
And it's not as expensive as you think,
Mhm,
so you can hop on Fiverr and look for virtual assistants, or,
mhm,
and read reviews or get referrals from other coaches and people.
mhm.
Like we tell little kids, use your words. Use
Yes.
your words. Use your words and ask other people, like,
Yes.
can you recommend blah, blah, blah? And, get a few recommendations, because some people can afford the higher top tier end, and some people,
Yeah.
are really not investing that much.
Mhm,
But one of the biggest mistakes or hurdles or just realities for new entrepreneurs or coaches or what have you
mhm.
is that you're everything. You
Yes.
are sales, you
Mhm.
are marketing, you are content creation, you
Yeah.
are scheduling, administrative,
Right.
you are sending newsletters and emails. You're like,
You're the one man band.
you are one man band. And I will never forget a coach that told me, like, don't be spending dollar time on penny tasks. Like,
Right.
there are certain gifts that you have, and these are just your giftings, right? And so I
Mhm,
always use, again, the church as an example. I want you to
mhm,
imagine going to a church, right?
mhm.
And when you were parking your car, the pastor was outside directing the traffic to the car. It's like, oh, you park here, you park there, right? And then
Yeah.
you get out the car, and as you're walking to the door, now the pastor then made it to the vestibule, to the foyer,
Yeah.
and he's handing out, welcome, welcome to the church. Now he's
Right.
shaking hands and ushering you to your seat. And then, when it's time to do praise and worship, now the pastor done
Mhm.
ran up to do the praise and worship.
Right.
And then when it's time, collect the offering, then he could, by the time it's time for him to preach, the thing
Mhm.
that he is uniquely gifted to do, baby, the pa-
He wore
he,
out.
he will out from the floor out. He ain't got energy for nothing but the benediction at that point. Pulling
Right.
Russell Simmons. Thank y'all for coming out.
That's it.
God bless you. Good night. So the beauty is that volunteers, ushers, choir members,
Mhm.
people who have other gifts in their zone of genius are
Yes.
able to step into that role, and it
Mhm.
frees him up. Okay. It
Mhm.
frees him up. Like, there are some pastors, they don't even come in until about 10 minutes before them to preach. They be like,
Right.
church is churching. I'm gonna let them church. And then I'm gonna come in 10 minutes before it's time for me to get up there
Right.
and do my thing, which is a real privilege to be able to do that. And so
Mhm.
from a coaching perspective,
Mhm.
I would definitely say, think about things that are necessary for your
Mm.
practice to run. So if it's necessary for you to send out reminders, if
Mhm.
it's necessary for you to send newsletters every week or every month or whatever, if it's
Right.
necessary for you to post content on social media, but that's not really your thing, that's not really your bag,
Mhm.
find somebody to do that. Okay.
Yeah. Get some
And
help.
get some help. And Jay,
Mhm.
so listeners, do you know this is how me and Jay met? So the I was going it alone, right, as a
Yeah.
podcaster. And when I started podcasting, at first I podcasted live, like in front of like
Mhm.
audiences. But then I would do these solo episodes. And the solo episodes, I was new in the game. I
Right.
wasn't technically savvy and all of that. And so Jay was a listener, a new
Mhm.
listener, and he's like, man, she got really good content. But these
Yeah.
solo episodes, they look ratchet. The quality is just not, it's not giving all that it could have
Right.
gave. And so this brother reached out to me via email and was like,
Mhm.
Dr. Shante, I really enjoy your content. I love your show. I couldn't help but notice there's like some static, some feedback, happening. And I edited a portion of your show just to
Mhm.
show you what it could sound like if you
Mhm.
just made some minor tweaks. I hope you're not offended. I was like, how much you charge? Because like, this is, brother, you just
Yeah.
gained a customer. Thank you
Right.
very much. Because the content, the ideas or whatever, that
Mhm.
was my lane. But
Yes.
the technical support and audio stuff, like, that was that.
Yeah.
Jay, God bless you. And I have sent clients Jay's way.
You
I'm like,
have, and I'm so
hey,
grateful, so grateful.
I'm like, this brother is the real deal.
Yeah.
So that you can do that. So that's
Mhm.
one of the things that I would say is that definitely don't be afraid to, because it's a necessity. Like,
Yeah.
nobody who's really doing the doggone thing is doing
Mhm.
it by themselves.
Nope.
Nobody.
Nope.
Okay. And, don't, because I've been in that place where it's like, I can't pay them, or like,
Yeah.
what am I going to pay them, or what have
Mhm.
you? This is also where, again, where you think about your content. So, because I have so
Mhm.
many digital assets as a podcaster, I have enough episodes in my arsenal
Right.
that I could turn that into a devotional. I could turn it into
Mhm.
a journal. I could turn it into a series. I could turn it into a
Yes.
master class. Like, there's so many things that I can take with that existing content,
Mhm.
repurpose and sell. So
Mhm.
think about, the things that, you can leverage that
Right.
will, if at a bare minimum,
Mhm.
just pay for the operations of the business so that it doesn't become a burden or a debt to
Mhm.
you. And only use what you need. So you might just need
Yeah.
somebody 4 or 5 hours a week, or you might just need that, something that might take you. And this is really key. Allow people to
Mhm.
work in their genius, because
Mhm.
podcast, I don't know how long it takes you, Jay,
Mhm.
but it takes me, like, I hate post-production. I hate it.
Yeah.
I don't have all the presets and the things. I just
Right.
be in there like, oh God, so what you think might take like 10, 12 hours, no, that might be how long it takes you.
Right.
If you ask somebody who actually knows what they're doing, it might take
Mhm.
them an hour, 2 hours, and you might be
Right.
paying them $25 a week,
Mhm.
and it just saves you so much time, and it enhances the
Yeah.
quality of what you do, and it professionalizes and elevates the professionalism of
Mhm.
what you have to offer. So get some help. Like,
Yeah.
even Jesus had disciples. You heard what I said?
Facts.
Jesus
That's
had
fact.
disciples.
Yeah. Oh man, that's so important because we can't do it alone. And I know that was definitely a lesson that I had to learn, and I learned it the hard way,
Mhm.
unfortunately, trying to go at it alone. And once you realize the benefit of allowing other people to operate in their gifts and you stay in your lane, man, it just frees you up to have an even greater impact. It truly does. So the other thing that I'm curious, right, is what's your sauce for success? And what I attribute that to is our daily habits, right? They're the things that we do on an everyday basis that people don't really get to see. What would you say are some daily habits that have attributed to your success in both life and business?
So in life, because I'm so committed to my wellness at this point,
Hmm.
one of the things that I never thought that I would be is
Hmm.
like the person who's always in the gym. I never saw
Hmm.
that for my life.
Hmm.
I'm like, oh, that ain't my ministry.
He was like, no gym rat over here.
But look, bro, like you see,
Right.
like you see, like
Yes,
welcome
putting
to
that
the
work
dance
in.
show. Um, I never thought that that would be me. And
Mhm.
when people say, "Well, how did you do it?" Like, what do you attribute your success? So there's this really good book called Atomic Habits, and that book is a game changer.
It is.
I can credit most of my success to really like my sports bra, right?
Mhm.
So Atomic Habits is really about looking at the things that you do daily as a habit,
Yeah.
and how is it that you can either tweak or modify or stack the new
Mhm.
habit that you want to cultivate on top of that. And so during the pandemic, it really was, I don't want to diminish any of the losses that happened during the pandemic, because they lost people, they lost
Right.
funds, they lost businesses, and I'm not taking anything away from that.
Right.
But what it did do, it meant that I didn't have to like commute to a job every day, but you
Mhm.
still have to get dressed, right?
Yes.
And so my sports bra would, like, so after my daily habit, you have to
Mhm.
get dressed. That's the habit,
Right.
getting dressed. The question is, what
Mhm.
are you going to put on your body?
Right.
And putting on the sports bra and the
Mhm.
workout leggings
Mhm.
primed me.
Yeah.
What else are you going to do in workout clothes?
Right.
Work out. Like
Facts.
I had no excuse. I was already dressed for it.
Mhm.
And so me making that decision every day, because it's
Mm.
like, here's the habit. I have to get dressed anyway.
Right.
What am I going to wear? Or
Mhm.
just people who are trying to change their eating habits. You have to
Mhm.
eat anyway,
You
but
do.
what are you going to eat?
Right.
Sometimes people are like, I want to eat more fruits. I want to eat more vegetables. Well, you know what you do? You go to the store, you throw them
Mhm.
in a drawer in the bottom of the crisper, and then they go bad, and you like, dang, dang.
Right.
But imagine if you took those apples and instead of throwing them in the crisper, you put them like right on display, like right on top of the counter, like where it's like
Mhm.
eye leveled and obvious. You have to go
Yeah.
into the kitchen anyway. And so I really started to assess like my daily habits and then
Mhm.
started to look at now what can I embed or add or tweak differently in order to make this a habit and build a
Right.
lifestyle that I really want. So I would definitely say, in terms of like wellness and just how you dress yourself and what you
Mhm.
eat, get that book, okay,
Yes.
and
Yes.
think about how you can make those shifts in your life. In terms of business, in terms of
Mhm.
consistency, so it's so funny now because there's always those people in your life that are like, why you always on your phone? Well, you always on Instagram, or what
Right.
have you. Meta is cutting me checks now. Okay. Meta,
Mm.
formerly known as Facebook, that also owns Instagram, is
Yeah.
cutting checks and depositing
Mm.
currency, real
Right.
funds
Right.
into my account. And I'm like, say what now?
Right.
What?
It hit different.
It hit like, wow, I literally get paid every time I make a post now.
Mhm.
I have rates now
Wow.
and I grow my audience now. And
Mhm.
so you can't, so from a social media or business perspective, because
Mhm.
there's no getting around this. Like, I
Yeah.
know, I know people like, oh, phones, and I really don't want to do the tech and the thing. But if you're going to be on your phone anyway, and most people are,
Mhm.
you can't post and ghost, right?
Right.
You have to be consistent,
Mhm.
in your posting. And it doesn't mean that you even have to post every single day, even though I know, Mighty Woodward would come after me if he like, you got to post 5 times a day. I'm like, bro, I ain't
Yeah.
doing it. Okay. Like I'm
Right.
not doing that. But when I show up consistently, because for
Mhm.
me it's about quality
Right.
over quantity, and that's just
Mhm.
my personal approach to it. But yeah, you have to be consistent. Like, so think about like a
Mhm.
plant. You can't water the plant on Monday and then come back 3 weeks later and try and
And
leaves
think it's
all
gonna be all
brown. You know
good.
what I'm saying? Thinking it's gonna be all good. You can't. Are you familiar with the term hangry? Viewers,
Yes. Yeah, I
listen.
learned it from you. I learned it from listening to your podcast. I was like,
Let me
"Hangry,
go
what's
too many
that?"
hours without food, okay? It's gonna be a
Right.
sick attitude. I know why babies cry when they hungry.
Right.
So the thing is you can't feed people and
Mhm.
then go off doing other things and
Right.
then come back, and try to feed them 3 weeks later. Like, no, it doesn't work like that.
Not
So
at
if
all.
again, another habit, if you're gonna be on your phone
Mhm.
anyway, and here's the thing about content creation,
Mhm.
and I'm not knocking the people who really go for the production value, right? That really
Yeah.
go for the skits
Mhm.
and really go for like there are people. Let me tell you the one thing that blows my mind. I was like,
What's
wow,
that?
this is the world we living in right now. I had to look it up because I kept seeing these posts, these TikToks that were like GRWM. I'm like, what is that? Like,
I
what
don't know
is
what that
that?
is.
That stands for get ready with me. There are videos
Oh.
where people you just they're putting on
Yeah.
makeup
Right.
and they're brushing their teeth or
Mhm.
they're making the bed. I'm like,
Yeah. Like
and
that,
thousands of people are watching this, and I'm
right.
like,
You
but the
know?
genius of that is
Mhm.
it's in the commission of what like that's one of the great best ways to do content. It's like
Mhm.
it's what I'm already doing.
Right.
So I'm just gonna invite you into
Yeah.
what I'm already doing. So when I post workout videos, I'm
Mhm.
not doing a special workout for you. This is the workout that I had already planned to do that
Mhm.
day, and so
Right.
I will film pieces of it to
Got
post
content.
later, and I have content. Exactly.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Yo, you have dropped so many gems throughout our conversation. Before we go, there's a fun little game I like to play with my guests. It's called Pick Three. The way this is going to work is I have a bunch of different questions, and I'm going to ask you to select a number. Whatever number you select, I'll give you a question. You'll answer it, and then we'll wrap up after that. So, whenever you're ready, let me know what number you like to choose between 1 and 16.
I'm gonna go with my birthday month. I'm gonna go with 4.
Okay, 4. The question is, if you woke up tomorrow with no business, what would you do?
Oh, dance. I would be a salsa dancer. Like hands down. That's my joy habit. Like
Mhm.
I would be a salsa dancer.
Wow. Wow, yo, I never would have guessed that.
You see, you not follow me on Instagram because I be getting it in.
Oh man, yo, I definitely got to get your IG because I follow you on Twitter, but I don't think I'm following you on IG. Yeah, I got to follow you on IG. Yo, you getting the salsa in? I love that. Yo, that has to aid in like the workout, right? That's like a routine in itself.
It's a routine in itself. And I'm a real big believer. So going back a little bit to your earlier question, like what are the things that make you successful in life?
Mm-hmm.
Joy matters. Joy
Mm,
matters. I've read a lot of Brene Brown's work, and she's talked about, guideposts for wholehearted living and things that
mhm,
wholehearted people do. Wholehearted people do things that are fun, that just give them life, that just
yeah,
fill their cup, and it doesn't make money, and it doesn't serve a higher purpose.
yeah.
It's just fun for them.
Hmm.
And that's what salsa dance is for me. Like I
I love that.
absolutely love it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. What's your second number between 1 and 16?
11.
11. The question is, who would you want in your inner circle? So you know how they say the five closest people to you have the impact on you, the direction you go in life. If you could pick those five people in your inner circle, who would they be?
Meghan Markle
Okay.
and her husband,
Okay.
Barack and Michelle Obama. So I'm taking the
Mm,
couples.
there you go.
So who's gonna be the single? Who's gonna be the odd man out
Or our woman.
or woman? Tabitha Brown.
Wow. So follow up question. Why those five?
So the Sussexes and the Obamas are really service oriented, and they know how to
Mhm.
serve at scale. They know how to
Right.
impact at scale and create buy-in. And the thing is that they both have done it in ways that are just kind of one-on-one, like where they'll show up
Mhm.
somewhere, and help make the lunches or,
Yeah.
or write personal notes. But they've also done it in ways that are kind of like foundational, that
Mhm.
help people go to college and things like
Right.
that. And so I think it's really important that when you have a public facing platform and your goal is
Mhm.
to serve, to learn how to serve in very small ways, but also how to
Yes.
serve at scale, because usually to
Right.
serve at scale, it requires other people's resources and investment and things like that. And how do you cultivate those relationships in order to serve people at scale? And
Yes.
then Tabitha is such a positive, motivating force.
Mhm.
She's so pure-hearted,
Mhm.
and so genuine and authentic. And that's one of the things that I strive to be,
Mhm.
is authentic. Like
Yes.
I can't contrive, I can't fake the funk. I just have to
Right.
show up and be who I am.
Mhm.
And she is a steady present reminder that you can be who you are, that you can be
Mhm.
over the age of 40 and you can still have major impact in the lives of other people
Right.
by being authentically who you are.
Oh man, I love that. Amazing. And what's your third and final number between 1 and 16?
Let's go with 16.
All right, 16. The question is, what is a notable opportunity that you missed out on or that you were able to take advantage of? So you can choose either one that you missed out on or one that you were able to take advantage of.
A notable opportunity that I
Yeah.
missed out on or took advantage of.
Hmm.
Oh, I can't talk about it yet.
Okay.
Um,
Yo, that's good. That's why, yo, it's coming up. And I'm assuming that's one that you taking advantage of.
Yep. But I'll generically I'll talk about it.
Okay.
So which ties like everything together, right?
Okay. Perfect.
So the consistency, right?
Hmm.
And these digital assets, not just the podcast assets, but what you put out on social media, those are digital assets. These is content that you created and curating, right?
Hmm.
So I got an email from a PR firm, a major PR firm, that was like, we are looking for wellness ambassadors for this very important client. I can't say the name of the client yet.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. That's fair.
But it's a major client.
Okay.
And we would like for you to be one of the brand ambassadors between now and December. what are your rates and blah, 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 blah. And I was like, because at first I was like, is this for real?
Right.
And so I did, I did my Googling and my
Mhm.
researching and what have you. And I was like, dang, these people are legit.
Yeah.
And I gave them my rates
Mhm.
and, and I gave them the high end of the rates too. And they
Mhm.
were like, okay, we'll pay you your rate. And I was like, and so as we were doing this back and forth and, getting everything kind of like finalized and what have
Mhm.
you, I asked her, I said, just out of curiosity, how did you find me? She said, Instagram,
Wow.
like under the hashtag wellness.
Mm.
They were specifically looking for Black people in the wellness space that
Mm.
had created audience,
Mhm.
specifically around issues of health. And I think about, so even though I've been in the wellness space for a long time,
Mhm.
specifically with respect to, no, actually, no, just with Whole and Complete so Whole and Complete literally launched a month before the pandemic. So within 2
Yeah,
years
word got
time,
cursed. Mhm.
it, my the mental health and the physical health were kind of on this track, this parallel track of these things
Mhm.
that were like changing like dramatically, right?
Right.
And so 2 years of consistent work in the wellness space.
Mhm.
I'm not a certified nutritionist because we like to disqualify ourselves. I'm the
Right.
doctor, but I'm not that kind of doctor, because we like to
Mhm.
disqualify ourselves. And being willing to be transparent enough to share my journey
Mhm.
is how I attracted this opportunity
Wow.
to be a wellness ambassador for a major client, and I'll share it when I can.
Looking forward to it. Definitely looking forward to that reveal. I appreciate you for giving us a little teaser. Definitely appreciate
Mm,
it. Yo, God is opening up doors, man, and I'm excited just to be able to witness what he has in store because you've already had a major impact, like you mentioned before. You going back to your definition of success, like you are successful, you have been successful, and you continue to be so. And I'm definitely grateful to have had you on the show. Everything that you shared with us today has been phenomenal.
thank
Before
you.
we go, I just want to hand the mic over to you. Are there any questions that you like to ask me, or any last or closing words you'd like to leave our audience with?
So, what's next for you, Jay? Like, what are you doing with this platform, and who are you serving?
Yeah. So, like I mentioned earlier, I'm really looking to serve the entrepreneurs, well, content creators who have yet to monetize. Like it's something that they struggle with because that's
Oh,
the
that's
journey that I walk
specific.
by. But to get to the heart of it, when I was working with a branding coach earlier this year, and we were kind of tossing over different ideas and what my focus was going to be, in the process of doing research, I saw the numbers of how many Black entrepreneurs there are in the US. And I was shocked to see that it's like 6%. Like, and we're almost at the very bottom when you look at all of the entrepreneurs of different races. And that utterly shocked me when I look at how resourceful our people are, how creative we are. And I couldn't believe that. And I wanted
Mm.
to, at that point, do something about that, increase the number of Black entrepreneurs. And in my case, online entrepreneurs. So that's really what my goal is. That's really what my mission is. And I see a space among other content creators, podcasters, and YouTubers, and helping them to become, those new entrepreneurs. So that's really where my goal is with Why We Succeed and what my mission is all about.
That's a really powerful why. So when you have a good why, you're already starting from a good place. But also, that's a really specific group of people
Hmm.
um, that you would subsequently be able to coach. So I hope that you're not just delivering content to them, but
Yeah.
that you are rallying like
Yeah.
feed the sheep, but let's corral them and let's
Yeah.
get you paid, as a coach, because I think that's phenomenal.
I appreciate that. Yeah, and that's definitely what I want to do. Like, I definitely want to help people, and like you mentioned, honing in on a very specific group of people. To your point, I've seen how beneficial that can be instead of trying to go after like a big, large, wide audience.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. Any other questions or any other closing words you like to share?
Thank you so much for having me on this show.
Thank you.
I'm grateful. I love to see you doing this kind of work. I love to see you serving a purpose that's higher than yourself. And this is really to be able to come back onto your platform is really one of the highest compliments, to the work that I have done, that wow, 5 years later, that this is still happening. And I'm just really grateful that you allowed me into this space. So thank you.
Um, and I thank God just for allowing our paths to cross. Like sometimes you never know um, the intention or the impact that just meeting certain people along your journey can have. And I can say you've always been somebody that stood out to me along this journey of being a podcaster and a content creator. I remember when you released your book. It was a gift that I gave from my mom. Like it was such a huge impact on her life. And I've always enjoyed listening to your show. I got my mom listening to it, my friends listening to it, and just the impact that you've had has just been phenomenal. So, how
Thanks,
God does, man.
Tambourine.
You're right. So I just want to thank you and definitely want to introduce you to those who may not have had the opportunity to be impacted by you. Let them know, how can they support you? How can they check you out, follow you, all of that good stuff?
So all of my social media handles are at Dr. Shante Says. So Shante is Shante, only 6 letters. It's real short and sweet. So at Dr. Shante Says. And my latest project has been an ebook called Aging Backwards, specifically transformational wellness for women over 40s. I'm not mad at the 20s and 30 somethings, but let me tell you what, 40 hit way different. Okay. And I know that there were so many women like me who were just physically stuck in a place and just didn't understand how to like navigate these hormonal
Mhm.
hurdles and just how to get their bodies back and their snap back and their groove back. And so I've laid out my entire process. And so that link is in my bio. You can go to drshante.com and pick that up as well.
Fantastic. Yo, you guys definitely go and show Dr. Shante some love and support. I'm going to make sure I'm following you on IG so I can definitely continue to show love and support. Check out the salsa dancing as well.
Yes.
And you already know, if you ever want to come back, you have an open invitation. It would be an absolute joy. Thank you so much for just coming on and sharing so much with us today. I really appreciate it, Dr. Shante.
You're so welcome. Thank you.